Welcome to episode 3. It's just a line. Today we're going to be talking about a fundamental concept, a fundamental algorithm in AI. This algorithm, used on its own, has been used in applications from finance to healthcare, but it's also the basis of neural networks, linear regression. And we're going to do it all without math. All right, so our task is going to be to predict house prices. How many of you like to drive around on Zillow and look at the predictions for house prices around you? Yeah, me too. And so today we're going to replicate that and we're going to try to predict house prices. So what we would do for this task in order to predict house prices is we go and collect a bunch of data. We collect a bunch of data on houses and attributes of those houses. Things like how close they are to the beach, whether or not they have a pool, how many bedrooms do they have. These are all things that we can use to try to predict house prices. So let's say that one of those attributes that we collect data on is the number of cats in a neighborhood. So we have number of cats in the neighborhood, and we're going to plot that against house price. As you might expect, this looks pretty random because we don't actually expect there to be a relationship between number of cats in a neighborhood and house price. More cats in a neighborhood shouldn't raise the price of your house, and it shouldn't lower it either. It shouldn't really matter. So if it really shouldn't matter, then I would say there's no relationship, and a no relationship would be a flat line. So to test my understanding of this and my understanding that there would not be a relationship between number of cats in a neighborhood and house price, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out how far away each of the points are from that line and see if this is a line of best fit. How do I determine whether this is a line of best fit? Well, I draw arrows from the line to each of my training data points, and then I line those up. So I line up the arrows that are on the top of that line. I'm going to line up the arrows that are on the bottom of that line. So here you can see these are all the arrows from the top of the line, and these are all the arrows from the bottom of the line. And if it's a line of best fit, these lengths are going to be equal to one another. And since they are, I know that this is a line of best fit. So great. So is this then my prediction line for a number of cats in a neighborhood versus house price? Well, not so fast, because there could be multiple lines of best fit. Take, for example, this line of best fit. If we lined up the arrows on top of the line and below the line, they would be also equal to one another. So it's also a line of best fit. But this plot has a little bit of an issue, which is that if we extend this line further, we would find out that if there are 0 cats in a neighborhood, our house would actually be worth negative $25,000, which doesn't actually make any sense. If there's no cats in the neighborhood, you shouldn't have to pay someone to take your house. So what we're going to do to actually determine which is the best line of best fit, should be our prediction, we're going to double every line. So instead of just drawing one line to each of our data points, we're going to draw 2 lines to each of our data points. And we're also not going to worry about whether it's above the line or below the line anymore. We're going to treat them all as equal. And we're going to line up all of these arrows for each of our lines of best fit. And we're going to try to find the shortest one. So the objective function that defines the goal of linear regression is to minimize the sum of squared residuals, or to find the best fit line where the total length of all of the vertical error lines squared is as small as possible. And so that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to find the smallest error overall. Now, another interesting thing here is that small variances or changes from the line are preferred, right? That's how we set up the problem, by having 2 lines that are going, 2 lines here that are going instead of just one. We're really overemphasizing points that are really far from the line. And we're not as worried about points that are really close to the line. So this allows us to overemphasize those big distances, because we really don't want to have those big distances, right? We want to have very small distances from this line if it's going to be our best line of prediction. Okay, so let's actually look at a prediction here. Instead of number of cats in the neighborhood, let's look at number of bedrooms, which is usually fairly correlated with house price. And so here we can see a line of best fit, and this line of best fit gives us a slope and an intercept. And the intercept is $100K. So when you have 0 bedrooms, you have a studio apartment, your baseline that you're going to be paying for your house is $100K. And then this tells us, as we go up to 1 bedrooms, how much we can expect to increase that house price as a result of the number of bedrooms. So the slope tells us how important bedrooms are to the house price, so how much the price goes up if the number of bedroom goes up. And then the 100K is that baseline house price at a studio or 0 bedrooms. This also allows us to now do predictions, right? You might have noticed in the original data here that we didn't have a data point for 3 bedrooms. So if you had a house with 3 bedrooms, you didn't actually have any training data similar to your house. What we can do here is we can actually predict what it would be, what your house price would be if you had 3 bedrooms. Now, of course, we know that it's not just number of bedrooms that impact the price of a house, but it's many different factors. And so what you can do here is you can have many different factors, and we can use weight 1, weight sub 1, weight sub 2, and weight sub 3 to denote the slope of each of these. And so that slope, or how much each of those contributes, is what we call a weight. So we weight how important bedrooms are, we weight how important location is, and we weight how important having a pool is to our overall house price. And that is multiple linear regression. And this forms a foundation for what we're going to talk about in the next episode, which is neural networks. Thank you for joining me for this episode in the AI for People Who Hate Math series. This is an unscripted series that is inspired by my conversations with people who feel like they can't conceptually understand AI because it's just too much math. And it usually is. Most AI classes, tutorials, and videos are full of math. The AI classes that I teach as a professor have math on nearly every slide. I wanted to challenge this assumption that AI could only be conceptualized by people with strong math backgrounds. Especially as AI permeates our daily lives, I think it's important that everyone understands the technology, at least conceptually. Because without it, we're putting a lot of trust into systems we don't understand. Feel free to let me know in the comments if there are topics that you want to see covered. The initial launch is 20 episodes, and I am excited to see what you think.